A half or a full marathon is a whole different game than a 5 or 10 kilometer race. Besides that, it's a lot longer, of course. There's an energy issue as well. We all try to avoid this. It's important to fuel before you start feeling tired or hungry in your race, to avoid depleting your glycogen stores. Not fueling on time can lead to an unpleasant, potentially race-ruining experience, runners refer to as bonking or hitting the wall during a race. It can be a bit difficult to figure out how much you need because it depends on many factors, such as your own body weight, the total racing time, and the weather conditions, of course. Knowing when to fuel during a half or full marathon takes practice and learning to reach your energy levels. In this video, I will go over what type of fuel to take, the amount of energy you need, and the timing during your race. Even after running full or half marathons for years, a lot of us are still trying to figure out what we need. Also, experienced runners might get some new insights from this video as well. Stick around till the end of this video for some practical tips. Let's dive into the topic. So, why do we need to fuel? The body has limited glycogen stores in the liver and skeletal muscles. And these reservoirs deplete even faster when the intensity of your exercise increases. For example, during a race. Because when you run faster, you use primarily sugars, which reserves are burned a lot faster. On an easy long run, you need a lot less energy because you are burning primarily fat, where everybody has more than enough reserves of. So as a result, the faster you run, the more your muscles rely exclusively on carbohydrates for fuel, rather than fats. As mentioned, the body stores enough glycogen for about 80 to 90 minutes of running at marathon effort. Practically, this means that your glycogen stores may only be adequate for 75 to 80 minutes at half marathon pace. It's good to mention that in principle, for a 10 km race, you don't have to take anything, unless it takes you more than 70 minutes. For a 15 km race, which takes 70 minutes or longer, it could be wise to take some fuel in the beginning of the race, to avoid hitting that wall at the end. So, what should you take for your half or full marathon race? You also need to hydrate, of course, because you lose a lot of water by sweat. There's not one size fits all running fuel. Some people work with sport energy gels and others like more solid food. It also depends on what your stomach can handle. How much and when at the race you need to take the fuel, I will discuss later on. I prefer to rely on energy gels and some intake of sport drinks as well. There are many brands out there on the market. Here are some brands which I prefer for gels. The SIS Beta Fuel Gel, the Martin Gel 100, and GU Energy Gels. This last one has many flavor options. Sport gels and chews should be taken with water. The water helps to dilute it and allows your body to absorb it more easily. For sport drinks, I prefer Tailwind Nutrition or Martin Sport Drink. Maybe you wonder if sport drinks are enough to fuel your half marathon. Maybe they are. Therefore, you should test, for example, at your half marathon. I would not recommend going out on your first half marathon or full marathon only on sport drinks. Like gels, chews, and whole foods, sport drinks replace some of the lost glycogen stores. In addition, the electrolytes contained in the sodium and potassium help with fluid retention lost from sweating. If you plan to rely solely on sport drinks for your half marathon fueling strategy, then pick one with more carbs and calories. For solid food, there's a large range of options, of course. For example, pieces of candy, banana pieces, raisins, and for some extra salt, pretzels or nuts. But how much energy do you need? Deciding exactly how many carbs you need to take in during a half or full marathon for your unique body is a tricky part. Of course, a 70 kg man doesn't need the same amount as a 100 kg man, for example. And someone finishing a half marathon in 1.5 hours won't need as much as someone running 2.5 hours. Runners should drink at least around 8 ounces or 250 milliliters of water with any food consumed during exercise, and aim to consume 50 to 70 gram carbohydrates per hour. around 120 to 240 kilocalories per hour. In this image, you can see how much carbohydrates are in each source of energy. Maybe you also wonder what elite runners take during their half or full marathon race. To answer this, let's look at Kipchoge's race nutrition plan for his Berlin Marathon world record. His nutrition plan is centered around Martin. Kipchoge used the gel 100 as part of his nutrition plan during his record-breaking run. This gel comes in 40 gram servings with 60% carbohydrates, namely 25 grams. A really high weight to energy ratio. Kipchoge took in over 100 grams of carbohydrates per hour during his race. Kipchoge's nutrition was a combination of drink mixes based on hydrogel technology and gel 100 to reach his nutrition intake. 100 grams is a bit much for the average runner though. Kipchoge is going more than 20 kilometers an hour and therefore his muscles use a lot of energy. So I would stick to the 40 to 70 gram per hour, like I mentioned before. Unless you start to run a marathon under 2.5 hours or your half marathon under 1 hour 10. For context, 100 grams of carbohydrates in solid food is roughly 4 baked medium sweet potatoes or 4 slices of whole wheat bread. Obviously, these listed foods aren't ideal for your race performance for many reasons, but it paints a picture of just how high intake 100 grams of carbohydrates really are. To the fueling schedules. Almost everyone should fuel for the half marathon. Only elite athletes who can run it around an hour don't need fuel per se. Like I mentioned at the start of this video, it all depends on your race time, body weight and the weather conditions. During hot weather, you probably need to take in a bit more water. I would highly recommend making a nutrition plan before your race. This way you avoid forgetting to fuel during the race. I want to look at an example of a fueling plan for both the half and the full marathon, based on the body weight and finishing times. The general advice from running coaches and sport dietitians is to fuel early and often during the race. This is how I built these examples as well. For the half marathon, the schedule is based on a 75 kg male or female runner with a finishing time of 1.5 hours on the left nutrition plan and 2 hours on the right nutrition plan. Looking at the left, I would suggest to consume a gel after the first 20, 40 and 60 minutes. Try to drink 100 ml of water after each gel, as well as 2 times 75 ml with some sport drink inside. Your total carb intake leads to 63.3 grams an hour and your hydration to 233 ml an hour. Looking at the right, at the 2-hour schedule, I would suggest to consume a gel after 20, 40, 60, 80 and 100 minutes. Try to drink 75 ml of water after each gel, as well as 3 times 75 ml with some sport drink inside. Your total carb intake leads to 62 grams an hour and your hydration to 240 ml an hour. You can of course switch gels in the schedule for solid food like bars or bananas. Just make sure you hit the same amount of carbs. Depending on your weight, you could take a bit more or less carbs as well. Now let's look at a full marathon schedule. This is also based on a 75 kg male or female runner. The finishing times are 3 hours on the left nutrition plan and 4 hours on the right plan. Looking at the left, I would suggest to consume 6 gels. Each 20 minutes, try to drink 75 ml of water after each gel, as well as 4 times 75 ml with some sport drinks inside. The total carb intake leads to 63.2 grams an hour and your hydration to 250 ml an hour. Looking at the right, at the 4-hour marathon plan, I would suggest to consume 9 gels. Try to drink 75 ml of water after each gel, as well as 5 times 75 ml with some sport drink inside. The total carb intake leads to 68.7 grams an hour and your hydration to 262 ml an hour. I would also recommend for the marathon maybe to switch some gels to some solid food like bananas or bars. This amount of gels might lead to stomach issues, but you could try on your long run to consume like 6 to 7 gels and see how it works out. Last, I want to mention some quick tips. Number 1. Cups at aid stations can be hard to drink from. Try to slow down a little to make sure you drink enough. 75 ml is quite a bit. Otherwise, try to take some small bottles with you. Number 2. Family or friends along the road can be very helpful. They can supply you with some bottles of water or new gels. This way, you don't need to carry them yourself. Make sure it's not your grandmother or father on a rainy, windy day. This is a bit harsh. Number 3. Practice with the intake of your nutrition during training. Preferably, use the same nutrition products for at least 6 weeks prior to your race, to let the stomach get used to it. And also try to practice intake during race-pace intervals. Your stomach may react different to gels on harder efforts as well, compared to your endurance. I hope this guide of full and half marathon nutrition may help you avoid hitting the wall in your race. Feel free to ask any related questions to your marathon nutrition and fueling down below in the comments. More footage about training and diet tips is coming your way. If you still go out there today, as always, have fun out there and get on the run.